To show people the power of their next generation console, the GameCube, Nintendo showed off a tech demo at Space World 2000. It was called Super Mario 128, a reference to the fact that Nintendo 64 was 64-bit, and the GameCube was 128-bit, so this led people to believe this was the long-awaited and rumored Super Mario 64 2. This demo saw 128 little Marios on a circular board and interacting with each other and objects, which was very impressive at the time. However, despite what everyone's best buddy Miyamoto said, this game never released, or at least fully released. Instead, Nintendo would use parts of it in upcoming projects. The sphere walking technology was used in Super Mario Galaxy and The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, the physics trees in Metroid Prime, but the concept of rapid object generation and hidden creatures performing a goal was carried over to a brand new IP for the system, and now a fan favorite, Pikmin, releasing in 2001 for Nintendo GameCube. Hello everyone, I'm Bucktooth Chicken, and today I'll be taking a look at what my favorite game franchise of all time, Pikmin. For decades, all you hear people talk about is Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong, Kirby, Pokemon, but Nintendo actually has many underrated series that I want to raise awareness to. Honestly, it wasn't until a year ago when I discovered this game, and I'm glad I did. It's hard to describe. You get sent to a realistic environment, get immersed into a world, and have tons of fun solving puzzles and collecting parts. So, I'll be starting my journey with the first game in this series, as well my personal favorite, even as no one ever played, Pikmin 1. Captain Olimar, a 1-inch tall alien from the planet Hocotate, takes an intergalactic vacation through space. However, his spaceship, the SS Dolphin, a reference to the GameCube's codename, strikes a comet and crashes into an unknown planet. Plus, 30 parts of the Dolphin were scattered all across the 5 areas. Olimar soon finds out this planet contains a high amount of oxygen, which is deadly for his people. Luckily for him, he brought a life orb, however it only lasts 30 days. Giving up hope, Olimar stumbles across a nearly extinct species called Pikmin, who you hope grow in numbers. They praise you as their leader and do whatever you command. Well, sometimes they're pretty smart when it comes to fighting and building, but then other times they'll just faceplant themselves. With their help, you travel through this unknown planet, barely avoiding death, and hopefully find all 30 parts in 30 days. After each day, Olimar will write a journal entry, which really gives you an inside look at his personal life. He talks about how he misses his wife and kids, and later on loses hope and thinks that he'll die here. Because of the time limit, there are 3 endings here. If you fail to get all the parts, Olimar books it and he crashes, so the Pikmin drive his dead body to the onion, producing a... Alaman? Actually, not all parts are needed in order to leave. If you get all the necessary parts, Olimar survives, but kinda ditches the Pikmin. But if you get all of them, he says goodbye and he turns the dying species from prey to predator and get to watch him thrive. This game tells a tragic tale of a father desperately trying to escape death and see his family, and it really makes you feel bad for the guy. Because of the deep lore, it gives the player more of a reason to carry on and escape this world, since in other games it's just, oh no, princess gone, demon got her, kill it. The gameplay Pikmin is much different than Nintendo's other series, and gaming as a whole. The first day serves as a tutorial, and then besides from Olimar's journal entries, you're on your own when it comes to finding your way, which I love. It encourages you to explore and find tricks and dangers yourself, which adds to the experience and makes the game more fun. Anyway, let's talk about the Pikmin. They're these creatures who will usually do anything you order, and they come in 3 types. The first ones will meet in the red ones in the impact site, and they're the strongest and can survive fire. We'll meet the yellow ones soon after in the Forest of Hope, and they can be thrown higher and can carry bomb rocks. The third and last kind are the blues in the Forest Navel, and they're able to move around underwater. Each type has their own unique advantages, and are perfectly balanced, so you'll probably end up using all 3 for the same amount of time. There are 5 areas that you have to explore through, although there are only 3 main ones. The Dolphin crashes in the impact site, which acts as a game tutorial. It has barely any enemies, but lots of ways to grow in numbers, plus a lake. After the tutorial, you'll actually have to return later on to get a second part, which gives you a better look at the area. The Forest of Hope is the first big area, and it really is Olimar's only hope for survival. It's also a forest. This will be your first time you encounter enemies like the Bulbors and bosses. The music's great as well, and it gives off this peaceful vibe with a hint of death sprinkled in. The next area is even bigger, that being the Forest Navel. It's one huge underground cove, full of fire, water areas, darkness, fungi, and pits of death. This is when the game starts to get really hard, throwing some fatal enemies your way. The Distant Spring is the final main area here, and it's probably the largest. There are 2 halves to it, the part covered with land and the part with water. I guess you could consider a large beach or lake area. This place is scary, believe me, and if you aren't that good, you'll get messed up many times. In my playthrough, this was the moment when I had pretty much given up all hope in succeeding due to my terrible luck. However, I would say that it might be my favorite area to explore, even if it isn't as peaceful. Finally, at the final trial, home to the final part. As the name suggests, it literally is one final trial for the player where they have to combine everything they've learned throughout their adventure in order to make their way out to the final boss, but more on him later. Even though this is probably the smallest area, I really like how the developers try to put every mechanic you've learned in one big finale. I guess I should explain the gameplay of it. So, you have 30 parts to collect, with 25 being necessary, and you only have 30 days to survive, which are around 12 to 13 minutes in our time. You can tell the time by this icon at the top of the screen. I'm someone who really is into the whole time thing in games, and I'm sometimes gets pretty stressed out when under pressure. I know this isn't a popular opinion, but I really like this feature, and I just can't imagine a Pikmin game without it. It adds so much to the experience, and it makes you feel like you have to strategize and plan out your day to be successful. This may make the game seem short, but in my opinion, unless you're amazing and beat it in like 7 days, you're spending enough time playing to get your money's worth. You have the punch of his Olimar, but you have a limited amount of health, so if you're low, you can heal it as often. If you die, the game ends, so you don't get a game over or anything. This shows how many Pikmin are in your squad, this shows how many Pikmin you have out, including the planted ones, and this shows how many Pikmin you have altogether. Just so you know, you can only have 100 out at a time, so try to pluck out any planted Pikmin to not waste them. Throwing will be your main way of controlling them, just like having them push a box, bomb a wall, kill an enemy, build a bridge, build a pole, or carry an item. Speaking of bombs, as I said, you have to find them scattered around, and you can destroy walls or easily kill enemies using them. When you have a Pikmin or carry a part, it'll take it to the dolphin, and it'll give you a little description of what each part does, which is a neat touch. For example, this one's able to destroy anything? Okay, Olimar, I'm not sure you have that for, but I know who not to mess with. Since Pikmin can sadly die in battle, you need to plant more in order to avoid a Pikmin extinction. You'll increase the population through pellets, and you'll find a number on each one. If the color of the pellet matches with the majority of Pikmin carrying it, you'll get that number, and if any other color carries it, it'll be divided by 2. You'll find these on flowers, just sitting around, or most commonly, as your reward for killing enemies. Although their bodies will also give you some Pikmin. They'll bring everything to their color's onion, which is their ship, and kinda like a Pikmin bank. You can also change the color of your Pikmin using the candy pop buds, which will be needed for performing some tasks. Pikmin start out as sprouts, and then you can have to yank them out before you can use them. However, if you let them be for a while, they'll mature. There are 3 levels of maturity: leaf, bulb, and flower, but then progressively getting more and more fast and efficient at performing tasks. However, you can also drink nectar that can find in the grass and mature them as well. As I said, the days only last for a certain amount of time, so at sunset you'll blast off with level select. However, if Pikmin are left behind and aren't in your squad when this happens, they'll be eaten by the nocturnal predators. It'll give you some stats on how you did, and something I love is that once you unlock multiple areas, you get to choose which one you want to go to, so everyone's playthrough could be slightly different. This really helps create strategy and gives the player more freedom. After you go to each one, you'll unlock that area from the game's challenge mode. Here, your goal is to sprout as many Pikmin as possible in a single day, which is very casual and a fun bonus. As I said, the gameplay is so when you compare to other franchises, and it's primarily based on the little puzzles and challenges you need to get each part. There are many hazards and obstacles out there for your party, so you need to find the safest and most efficient way to work around it. You'll need to sit down and think to yourself, how can I get that? On several occasions, since as I said, the game doesn't spoil it. Some parts will be fairly easy, and some will require some skill and thinking, and others will require a Pikmin massacre. But that's what makes the game fun, original, and special. As great as the game can be, terrible controls can easily take that away. So we'll take a look at the Wii version, since I'm too cheap to go out and get the original GameCube one. Sorry, but you really are missing out on much. The Wii version is considered the definitive version because of how well the Wii remote works, acting as Olimar's whistle. The GameCube obviously used the controller, and although inferior, I haven't heard of any complaints. You control Olimar with the analog stick as expected, which you can move around pretty easily, although you can't exactly move in all that many directions. If you don't have any Pikmin with you, you can press the A button to punch enemies, which is really only useful with the small ones. With Pikmin, throw them in with A, and in the Wii version, while holding A, you can press B to select Pikmin type, and down on the D-pad to select any Pikmin maturity phase. Or in other words, segregation. I'm sure this is very useful, however, I don't think I ever bothered to do it in my playthrough. Holding B will control your whistle, and with the B sensor it breathes to the Pikmin. Down on the D-pad allows you to try and control your Pikmin move, and either X or C will dismiss them. My only complaint is at the camera. It's not terrible, and by halfway in you'll mostly be used to it. You move it up and reset it, but it just never really seems to go where you want it to. This may not have been possible at the time, but it kinda makes moving around and seeing where you're going a little bit inconvenient. The controls are pretty good, but the Wii one's is the definitive version. You and your army of Pikmin aren't alone on this planet, and there are a ton of creatures who will try to feast on you and your comrades, because that's how the circle of life works. When defeated, the smaller ones will usually drop a pellet, while the bosses will drop parts. There are a lot of them here, so I'll briefly go over each one semi-alphabetically. The armored counter-beetle is, well, definitely a giant armored counter-beetle. This guy is a mini-boss in the forest navel in the distant spring, and will have a part inside of him. It'll shoot large rocks at you, which will crush anything in its path, which if done poorly could lead to a team wipe. Because of its armored shell, the only way to hurt it is by throwing a Pikmin in its eye right before it shoots a rock, which will suck it, harming it, lifting it up its shell, and allowing it to attack its back. Next is Beady Longlegs, a giant spider who acts as the final boss of the forest navel. He kinda just walks around. His only form of attack is stomping, once again crushing Pikmin. You need to attack his body, which is normally out of reach unless you have yellow Pikmin. He at times lowers himself, but I find swarming with yellow is easier. Just make sure that when you're throwing you don't miss and get them squished. Then there's the bread bug, a strange little guy who doesn't actually harm you, but he has a part. So you know what that means. Kill it! I feel bad killing it, but you gotta do what you gotta do. He drags objects like pellets around, but he got 2 Pikmin to also carry it, they'll out-strength it. If they drag him to the onion, he'll go up with it and be hurt greatly, but he can also attack it the boring old-fashioned way, though it takes a while. The burrowing snakebird is a snake bird who's the final boss of the Forest of Hope. You'll find 3 of them, although only one actually has a part inside of it, that being the one to the far left. I'll just go for him if you aren't that good, because they can easily wipe your party. He'll eat any Pikmin it sees, so you should probably throw everyone at him at once. Your hope is to swarm it the second he comes from the ground, giving you the advantage. Next we have the most recognizable creature of the series, the Bulborbs. The dwarf red Bulbos are tiny, around Olimar size, and will try to chase you, pretty slowly, and attempt to attack in the Forest of Hope. They're kind of like the Goombas here, and you can easily one-shot them by throwing at Pikmin at their backs, but I prefer to take them out with Olimar's mighty fists. Then there's the big boys, the red or spotty Bulborb. These guys are large and can also be found in the Forest of Hope with the little guys, and will sleep until they're disturbed. These guys are much stronger, so if you can either swarm them with the reds or bomb them twice. There's also another type of these guys, the Bulbears, a more advanced Bulborb found in its spring. The dwarf ones are just like the dwarf Bulborbs, but are black, stronger, tougher, and more alert. I'd definitely try to kill them yourself if you care about your friends' lives. The spotty Bulbear is a larger version, and will sleep until awakened. As expected, they're much stronger and will protect any dwarf in danger, acting as a parent. I would just bomb it 3 times, but you could, once again, swarm it with reds, but they won't go down without a fight. The female shoe grub, in the Forest of Hope, isn't really much of an enemy. They don't attack you, and although they can literally eat the bridges you spend so long building, they're barely any reward in killing them, so I'll just let them be. The males, however, come from underground and attack, and will also be able to eat bridges. They're more of an annoyance than a threat, but I would just kill them anyway just so you don't have to worry about them, and you can easily lead them to water to drown them. The fiery blowhog, I guess, is the main enemy of the forest navel, and as our description states, they're a hog that blows fire at you. However, the reds are immune to fire, so they go down pretty easily. However, I guess try not to have the reds burned anyway, since they'll blow off the flowers on their head, making them slower. If you're doing other types for some reason, if you keep blowing your whistle at them, they will hopefully be fine. Next we have Gulex, who you may have no idea who he is. He's a mini-boss on the impact site, and unlike most others, is never seen or heard from again. It can only be found on odd-numbered days, starting from day 9, so some people may never have seen him before. He's like a giant ball of water, which drowns any Pikmin besides blue, so you should probably fight with it just then. He shouldn't give you too many problems, and if you're fast enough, you can completely avoid him without even having to fight. Speaking of mini-bosses in the impact site, the Mamuda is a creature who appears on even-numbered days, starting on day 8. He's like this big rock creature with these giant arms, which can slam your Pikmin in the ground. This hurts you, but it won't actually kill the Pikmin, just plant them. In fact, after you repluck them, they'll be fully flowered up, which ends up helping you. He has a lot of health, but if you swarm him with reds and do your best to dodge the slams, he shouldn't be that annoying. The Honeywist isn't an enemy, but is a creature, so I'll talk about it anyway. It floats around carrying nectar, and if attacked, it'll drop in vanish, meaning that you can fully mature in your squad easily. The iridescent flint beetle is a harmless guy who scurries around at random, so you know what that means. Kill it! He drops some useful rewards, so be sure to take him out, even if it makes you a terrible person. The Pearly Clam Clamp is a clam found in the impact site. Inside you have a pearl, worth 50 Pikmin or a part. You'll have to throw a bunch of Pikmin at it, and after a while it'll come loose. After a few seconds, its mouth will shut, so look out for that. It's a little risky, but the rewards are worth it. The Puffstool is a giant walking fungus who acts as a mini-boss in the Forest Navel. He really isn't that hard, just wait until he trips over and falls over, swarm him, and he should go down pretty easily. If you aren't fast enough, however, he'll release a purple cloud, infecting any Pikmin caught in it. This will turn them into Puffmen, who are these little mushroom Pikmin who turn on you and attack. You can shake them off, and hopefully it'll become normal again, preventing any casualties. In Distant Spring, the putty blowhog flies around and blows at you, scattering your entire party all over the place. I think whoever came up with these designs may have had one too many glasses of eggnog. He can be very annoying, and if you don't fight with the blues, make sure your Pikmin don't fly in the water and drown. After the Pikmin are thrown at it, it'll be way down to the ground and will be easily invulnerable. Now you have the Shearwig, some winged insect in a forest able in Distant Spring. Like the Sheargrubs, they come from the ground and eat away at bridges, but are slightly stronger and can fly, meaning that they'll try to avoid you if low on health. Now one of the strangest here, the Smoky Prog, who I guess is the boss of Distant Spring. He's an optional boss, however, and can only be found before day 15, so have a fairly short range to fight him. If you visit the area to the far south, you'll find a large egg containing him, and it'll hatch 4 to 5 seconds later. After awakening, this monster will ignore you and head straight for the landing site. It'll leave behind a harmful gas, and is able to kill any Pikmin that are still planted, so make sure to yank him out and pull them away before fighting him. It's very strong and has high defense, but if you fight wisely, it shouldn't give you too many problems. After killing it, it'll drop a pearl, which counts as 100 Pikmin, so there is a high reward involved. The Swooping Snitch Bug is a winged insect that will fly around and try to grab 2 of your Pikmin in a forest of Hope in Distant Spring. He can be super annoying, but if you throw in a Pikmin at him, he'll be weighed down and finished off easily. After flying through the Pikmin for a few seconds, he'll violently throw them into the ground and it'll be planted, meaning you have to yank them out again. If one's a yellow with a bomb, however, it'll explode, killing any nearby Pikmin. Water Dumples are fish things with huge mouths in the Distant Spring. They can eat Pikmin easily, so I prefer to take them out with this Olimar to prevent any losses. Speaking of water, the Wogpole are actually larval forms of the Wollywog, and are found in the Forest of Hope in Distant Spring. They are harmless, and there is literally no reason to fight them. Speaking of Wogpoles, next up is the Wollywog, a giant frog-like creature in forest navel. When it sees your party, it'll jump above you, and then quickly stomp. This will crush your Pikmin easily, so you want to swarm out the second he lands, and then he shouldn't give you too many problems, but still some. These guys are one of the most deadly enemies in the game, and has murdered many of my comrades. There's also a yellow version in Distant Spring, and besides his appearance, they're pretty much the same enemy. Now we have the Emperor Bullblacks, who is the final boss of the game, containing the final part located in the final trial. This guy is huge. He'll pop out of the arena and has multiple deadly attacks. Whenever he sees you, he'll stick out his large tongue, attempting to gulp up your squad. After it's below half health, its eyes will randomly bulge, and then soon after it'll jump high in the air and crush your party. Fighting this guy is a death wish, and funnily enough, you don't even have to fight him, since his part is optional. Anyway, you can only harm his face, and if you actually want to live, you'll need to stun him. There are a ton of bomb rocks in the area, so be sure to bring a lot of yellows. When he tries to stick out his tongue, it's easy to sacrifice all the guys with bombs at once, because the more bombs he eats, the longer he's vulnerable. If you do this all at once, you can actually beat him in like 20 seconds, but only if you're really good. It took me a few tries until I could beat this guy, and even then he caused a Pikmin massacre. This guy's very terrifying for newcomers, but experienced players shouldn't have too many problems with him. They could easily have reused like 10 enemies for each area, but they went all out here, which I really have to give them credit for. These creatures can be pretty annoying, but they're essential to the experience. This is one of the most beautiful games of its generation. Yeah, it can be a little blurry, but it came out on the GameCube, so don't expect it to be full HD. They put in the effort to give everything a shadow, and everything looks as if it could exist in the real world, which I feel is one of the main themes. Like, yeah, of course Pikmin 3 looks way better, but for its time, it was amazing. Most GameCube games do look pretty good graphically, but I would say this is one of the best. The ground for each area has a unique texture, the water is beautiful and very realistic, and then it even gave it the creature's expressions to make it more believable. It's that attention to detail that really makes me love it even more. Now, the soundtrack of this game is absolutely phenomenal. There's so many catchy tracks, and they each fit their respective situations perfectly. Like, seriously, they compose a unique track for every part of the game. Every track has this feel to it, it's hard to explain. It plays a peaceful tune, but with an unknown and alien-like vibe. They perfectly capture the game, because in my opinion, the two themes are exploration and an unknown environment, and the hope that one day, you'll escape the planet to see your family. That, or die trying. As I said, they captured this perfectly with a hint of anxious, catchy, but somber tune. And oh yeah, that challenge mode theme is my jam. Obviously, I'm not going to judge newer games with aging, since they're, well, new, but it just occurred to me that this game is actually over 18 years old. It's kind of crazy to think that, since the game, in my opinion, aged really well. Obviously it has its flaws, but there's still a lot of people who actively play, speedrun, and just have a good old time with it. A lot about this game holds up great, even the outdated graphics look pretty good. Yeah, the camera kinda sucks, but you'll get used to it. The main complaints I've heard are the numerous and game-breaking glitches. The most notorious is the crushing glitch, which squashes Pikmin into the ground's boundaries, killing them without a scream, trace, or anything. It's actually pretty dark and surprisingly kind of funny. It seems to happen the most when swarming enemies, most notably with the Wollywogs and Bulborbs. This is pretty dangerous, although I had no idea about it until after my playthrough, so I don't know if I was affected or not, but probably so. There are tons of the other ones, some being harmless, some being helpful, and others being just plain old deadly. The thing I don't understand is why the Wii version didn't address these issues, and actually it creates even more glitches and makes the pre-existing ones even more harmful. As I said, this game has a good amount of problems, but it still holds up really well today. I wouldn't say that this game had a huge impact, but it sure did have one. This is the Pikmin that started it all, and although sadly being the underdog and one of Nintendo's most underrated franchises, it has a large and dedicated fanbase. Miyamoto had actually stated that Pikmin would be the next Mario. As I said, gaming as you know wouldn't be that much affected at all if this game hadn't come out, but that doesn't mean that all 3 games aren't masterpieces. Plus, it created what appears to be everyone's least favorite and OP Smash character. And the Pikmin could be considered the early 2000s version of the Minions, though I'm not sure that's a good thing. This game is a blast. You'll enjoy yourself throughout the entire playthrough, guaranteed. Playing this game will put you in a zone. It's kind of hard to describe. You'll get invested and motivated to go onward, explore the unknown, do whatever it takes to protect your friends, and by the end, you will have created an army. After a while, you'll learn the ins and outs of each area, find the most efficient way to get each part. Pikmin's a strategy game, so you can either play it just for fun, or maybe even the speedrun, see how little deaths you can have and how little days are necessary for getting all the parts. You may feel upset if you mess up and all your Pikmin die, or be annoyed when your Pikmin won't freaking stop eating nectar if you tell them not to, but in the long run, you'll still enjoy your time within the world of Pikmin. And that, my friends, was Pikmin. This has to be one of my favorite games of all time, just for how original and unique it is compared to other franchises. Pikmin did a fantastic job making its environments feel believable, and it's giving you a fun experience throughout your journey. It's on time for the final score, so gameplay, 10 out of 10, controls, 4 out of 5, graphics, 5 out of 5, music, 5 out of 5, aging, 2 out of 3, and fun, 5 out of 5. So that all rounded up to a 31 out of 33, 94%, 9.5 stars, or an A. Yeah, it has a few problems, but still holds up pretty well today and is a great experience. You should really give Pikmin series a try, and in my opinion, I would play them in order so that we can understand the lore better. As I said, it was released on the GameCube, but it was re-released later for the Wii. This version will probably be easier to get a hold of, and it made the controls so much more interactive and fluent. However, somehow Nintendo kind of broke the game in the port, because as I said, there are even more glitches in this version, plus makes the existing ones even more deadly. Either way, we're probably better with the Wii one. I know I've been rambling on about how amazing and great this game is, but I'm truly being honest. It may not seem like much when I'm just explaining it, but play it sometime and you'll know what I'm talking about. Pikmin's an experience. It sends you on a journey through an unknown planet with one goal: reunite your family. I gotta give Nintendo credit on this one. They put in their A game. This series is sadly one of the most underrated, but hopefully one day it can gain some popularity. Thank you all so much for watching this video. It really means a lot. And if you now excuse me, I'm gonna go and wait for Pikmin 4's announcement.